I own 3 OBSBOT cameras. The Meet, which we've got here, which I did receive free for review. The OBSBOT Tiny 2, which we see on the bottom. That one I purchased with my own money. And then the original Tiny 4K I also own, which I also received for review. Today I'm going to compare these two. That's the Meet and the Tiny 2. And just show you some image comparisons that are available. These are default settings. I have them on nearly identical settings. I say nearly because I do believe that the zoom is slightly different on the two. Yeah, just barely. But otherwise, they're all on default everything. And in this environment, this is a side lit natural lighting, and then I have a light that's over here. Something pretty similar to what your average user would have, not professional lighting environment by any means. Just, you know, a window that's open. And both of them look very good. You can see that they're handling the low light correction a little bit differently. However, you can also get similar video from each of them. So say I like how bright the OBSBOT Tiny 2 is displaying for me right now, and I would like to bring it up just a little bit so it doesn't look quite so dim. I can increase the low light compensation here and get something pretty similar on the Meet. So they do look remarkably similar, which makes sense. The same manufacturer, a lot of the same technology. It's just that the default behavior might be slightly different. You can also manually change the exposure, which I often will do just because I want it not trying to change things up on me while I'm in a video call. So I'll get it to where it looks nice and I'll leave it. But again, this is what natural lighting looks like. And then I will change up the lighting and you can see it in a different environment. All right, here is awful overhead lighting. I've got blackout blinds here, so none of that natural light is leaking in. And this is what this room lighting looks like, which is what a lot of people do when they're on a video call. It's not something I recommend because it looks terrible, even on stellar cameras like this. But you can see that the Tiny 2 is managing it a bit better. On the Meet, I'm a little bit more blown out. Oh yeah, but that compensation that I changed earlier was up a little bit, so I could take that down if I wanted to. And that's a little bit better. The color also doesn't look so great, so I might want to tweak my white balance a little bit manually and see if we can get somewhere that looks a little bit more accurate. Don't want to go too cold. Do we want to go brighter still? Yeah. It's not great. It's not the end of the world. It's not terrible. But certainly this is not the type of lighting that you would want to look your best in. And I do think that the Tiny 2 is performing better, especially since Tiny 2 is still on all the default settings. Everything's on auto and it's running like a champ. So, which makes sense. Also, the Tiny 2 is, I believe, a slightly newer camera. So we're going to put white balance back to auto and let it do its thing. Are we on 0? Yeah, we're on. Oh, and this is on global and that's on face. Actually, let's switch to global here. Let it try. Nah, that's worse. That's worse. So we'll go back to face and then see, now it's using my face as a frame of reference to let you know whether or not it needs to raise or lower that compensation. You see how they're both adjusting though as I'm moving my hands. This is why I often will lock and just manually do exposure, ISO, all of that. All right, one more lighting condition. And that is my lighting that I use in my everyday work. And this is like studio style lighting. I've got 2 different key lights here, and then I also use a backlight just to fill in the dark shadows behind me. And you usually can't really tell that that light is even on. Let me see. Oh, there we go. So it's just barely on, and all it does is just make it look like I don't have a shadowy dark background. So in this case, you see that the Meet is handling it a little bit better. It really loves light. Meanwhile, the Tiny 2 is a little bit overblown. Let's see if we can make that image look a little bit nicer. We can take the low light compensation down because we have plenty of light now, and that looks actually pretty fantastic. A little bit more if we want it to be a little bit even less blown out. So you can see like the color in my skin looks different now. I don't look so washed out. And yeah, I think both pictures here, they look very good. And again, this is all auto. I do tend to manually adjust everything, but for people who don't want to do too much fiddling, I think having good performance even on auto mode is really important. So that's why I'm showcasing all of these different lighting environments. I think the thesis for this video is really they both are very well compatible for being used in a wide variety of lighting situations. The Tiny 2 seemed to thrive a little bit more with natural lighting and low lighting situations, and the Meet thrived a little bit better with studio style lighting, extra bright lighting. And in general, though, the fact that these are so customizable and that there are plenty of options for you to tweak and get the exact effect that you would like to get and the performance that you would like to get from your camera makes them both great options. The other consideration, which is honestly what makes the Meet my daily driver over the Tiny 2, is the height difference, because the Tiny 2 is on a gimbal, which is great. It's really cool. See, like, I can use this and I can I can change what it looks like. Right now it's propped up a little bit because I actually do tilt it down and then I show my desk, and I use that to record product videos and things like that. There we go. So it's currently tilted down, and then I just display straight onto my desk if I want to do like a keyboard typing test or something like that. That's what I use that camera for. But for video conferencing, anytime I have to meet with people and I want to feel like I'm connecting with them, I do use the Meet. And I think that it's a very slight difference in height, but having the Tiny be just a little bit higher does make my eye contact look off. It looks a little bit too far away from where the actual source of video is compared to the Meet, where it looks a lot more like eye contact. Obviously not perfect, that's how cameras are, but that connection factor is a little bit better with the Meet, which makes sense. The name is Meet, right? So for video conferencing, face-to-face kind of thing, Meet's probably the better option. Action, or I need to get a certain angle, or I need it to follow me, so I want to use the gimbal, something like that, then Tiny 2 or the Tiny 4K would be the way to go. But yeah, they're both excellent cameras. The video looks great on both of them. So, and I love them. They're fantastic. I've had OBSBOT products now for several years. So